we bring you more. Stay with us, stay in the loop. Straight talk, clear view, one place for the story, one voice for the truth. Patriot Nation News, PNN, we bring it through. Patriot Nation News, what you need right now for you. Patriot Nation News, hear it loud, clean and true. PNN, PNN, Patriot Nation News. Voices rise, the facts roll in. Every angle, every win. City halls and highway miles. Real lives, real news, real time. Stay with us, stay in the loop. Straight talk, clear view, one place for the story, one voice for the truth. Patriot Nation News, PNN, we bring it through. Patriot Nation News, what you need right now for you. Patriot Nation News, hear it loud, clean and true. PNN, PNN, Patriot Nation.
Oh, yeah. Patriot Nation News, PNN News for short. We appreciate you being here on this Tuesday night or Monday night. Monday night, yeah, I'm already ahead. I got my days mixed up. It's holiday week, and I'm so excited. We have Friday off, and so I'm looking at the dates. It's changing over to the new month, and I'm trying to figure out all those things. So get my days mixed up. There's a breaking announcement that will came out this evening about the reflecting pool, reported by the Right Scoop, the president, which posted it on his True Social. But this is what he said: the reflecting pool, which suffered great damage due to the vandals and radical left scum that hate our country, has been, of course, they've been working on it, has been for the past 2 days in full operation. It looks beautiful. After July 4th, we will release the water, fix the damage, he says, done to the very expensive waterproof matting with the use of sharp knives and muscle. That's not a phrase you hear all the time. Sharp knives and muscle, including the 350-foot gash along its right side, and have it looking as good as it was 2 weeks ago when it was absolutely perfect. This will all happen very quickly. Security is watching very carefully for the almost 70 other monuments, statues, and fountains that we renovated throughout Washington. And listen, I would just make a disclaimer here. You can hate the president, but let's not be destroying those sites. This shows you, I don't care who the president is. I'm not destroying things that are, someone's paid money for, that they reflect the history of our nation or some monumental, like the Vietnam Wall or whatever it is. Just leave them alone. People like that, you can't deal with them. You have to put them somewhere they can never do it again. He says that if anyone attacks any of them, they get as much as 10 years in jail. In any event, go check it out. The reflecting pool is magnificent. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. We had a good day. He's feeling a little spiffy. One thing he did, and Justice Alito is really letting them have it. But there was 2 or 3 decisions that have been released, I think, every day for the last working days, the last 3 working days. Today was no different. On Monday, today, ruling in a 5-4 ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that federal law does not require mail-in ballots to be received by Election Day. This is what Justice Alito is fired up about. The lawsuit challenging the mail-in ballots was filed by the Republican National Committee and the Libertarian Party of Mississippi. Conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrote the majority opinion, said state laws allowing mail-in ballots to be counted after Election Day do not conflict with federal law. Chief Justice Roberts joined Amy Coney Barrett and sided with the liberal justices. Quote, a Mississippi law permits the counting of absentee ballots postmarked by Election Day but received up to 5 days later. We must decide whether the federal Election Day statutes preempt Mississippi law. They do not, Amy Coney Barrett wrote. The Election Day statutes say nothing about ballot receipt, and we cannot add to the words Congress chose, Barrett wrote in the majority opinion. I will slide into this article here and say that Justice Alito is king on the word day. He goes on to say due dates for absentee ballots have shifted over time. During the Civil War, states that allowed absentee voting imposed an Election Day deadline for ballot receipt, Comey Barrett added, or said. Recall that earlier this year, conservative Justice Samuel Alito blasted the endless counting of mail-in ballots during oral arguments, and he is still blasting. Quote, we have lots of phrases that involve two words, the second of which is day. Labor Day, Memorial Day, George Washington's birthday, Independence Day, birthday, and Election Day, Alito said. Quote, they are all particular days. If we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase Election Day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place, Alito added. Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett appeared skeptical during the oral arguments. Much more to come. Thank you for the Gateway Pundit for the reporting on this. We appreciate that. Additionally, President vowed action after the Cook ruling. President said on Monday he vowed to take further action against a Federal Reserve Governor, Lisa Cook, after the Supreme Court let her remain on the central bank's board while her legal challenge to his attempt to remove her continues. Quote, the Cook lawsuit having to do with her suitability in sitting on the board of the Federal Reserve was sent back by the Supreme Court on a strictly procedural basis, Trump wrote on Truth Social. We will take appropriate action immediately to make sure that someone who has committed wrongdoing will not be making vital decisions concerning the welfare of the United States of America, the president added. Trump's statement comes shortly after the Supreme Court issued a pair of decisions that broadly expanded presidential authority over independent federal agencies while carving out an exception for the Federal Reserve. In a separate 6-3 ruling, the court held that presidents generally have the authority to remove leaders of independent agencies, overturning the 1935 Humphreys executor precedent that limited executive powers over agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission. But in Cook's case, the justices voted, once again, 5-4 to leave the Federal Reserve Governor in her position while litigation over her dismissal proceeds. According to the AP, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that allowing Cook's immediate removal would turn for cause protection into little more than at-will employment, signaling, by the way, that's what I work under, at-will employment, signaling that the Federal Reserve occupies a unique constitutional position because of its role in setting U.S. monetary policy. Cook, who was nominated by former President Joe Biden, has denied allegations that she improperly claimed two homes as primary residences on mortgage applications before joining the Fed. She has not been charged with a crime. The Trump administration has argued the allegations provide sufficient grounds to remove Cook and has maintained that courts should not second-guess the president's decision. Solicitor General D. John Sauer has argued the mortgage applications demonstrate, quote, gross negligence at best, end quote. The ruling lets Cook remain one of the Federal Reserve's 7 governors while her lawsuit moves forward. The case has drawn close attention from financial markets because a successful removal could let Trump appoint another governor and potentially reshape the central bank's policy direction. This will have the interwebs really aflutter. Trump has repeatedly urged the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, arguing that cheaper borrowing costs would benefit American families, businesses, and the federal government. While Monday's decision temporarily preserved Cook's position, the broader Supreme Court rulings marked a significant victory for the Trump administration by expanding presidential authority over most independent federal agencies, leaving the Federal Reserve as the court's principal exception for now. Trump indicated Monday that his administration intends to continue pursuing Cook's removal through additional legal or administrative action. In a one that was spoken of in that article, the president hailed the high court win on executive power. On Monday, he celebrated what he called a landmark Supreme Court victory after the justices expanded presidential authority to remove leaders of independent federal agencies. Big win just moments ago at the Supreme Court in the Slaughter case, confirming presidential power in our country to remove executive branch officers and agency appointees or representatives under Article 2, Trump wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social. The president called the 6-3 ruling historic and unprecedented, adding that it was one of the most important ever given with respect to presidential powers. Quote, "It is such an honor to be the sitting president who won this historic and unprecedented ruling," Trump wrote. "Thank you for your attention to this matter." The Supreme Court ruled that Trump lawfully, for our Democrat federal trade commissioner, commissioner, say that 5 times fast, commissioner, Rebecca Slaughter, overturning the court's landmark 1935 decision in Humphrey's Executor versus United States, which had limited a president's ability to remove leaders of certain independent agencies without cause. According to Reuters, the ruling invalidates statutory tenure protections for FTC commissioners enacted by Congress more than a century ago and significantly broadens presidential authority over executive branch officials. The case stemmed from Trump's March 2025 dismissal of Slaughter, whom he removed over policy differences. So a lot of major decisions are being made right now by the Supreme Court, others to come. Most of them the president has successfully navigated. More to come on that. Turning to the Middle East and the Persian Gulf specifically, although a ceasefire holds after the weekend hits by missiles, drones, and other things from both sides, talks in Qatar were to begin at some point, although not sure. But there is an article by that Kay Bailey Hutchison that spoke to Newsmax and said Trump's patience with Iran is, quote, wearing thin. She had several things to say, a little bit more broadly than I expected in her comments. She said the ceasefire is not really a ceasefire. You just see Iran continue to promise and then not deliver. Promise and not deliver, promise and not deliver. I think the president's patience is rightfully so wearing thin. Hutchison pointed to planned talks in Qatar, but questioned whether Iran is generally interested in reaching an agreement with the Trump administration. Now we're seeing that the meeting will be in Qatar, which is a lot closer to everyone that's involved. But I think really Iran is just playing this game. And that's been the challenge by others like Victor David Hanson and others who have spoken this matter. She said there are growing reports of anti-regime protests that are occurring inside and others gathering outside the country, and had hoped that this would provide a chance for meaningful political change. She said if there's any hope for an uprising within Iran by the people, that would be really, I think, a hopeful turn of events. It's hard to see how the people can do anything since they're not armed. But that is something we'll be watching very carefully, obviously. She goes on to say that she doesn't think they have the ability to wage any kind of military campaign, that all of those resources they had, most of those assets, have been, quote, destroyed. She said the bigger question, Hutchison said, is whether Iran's negotiators recognize that the president has consistently followed through on his warnings and has made clear what he expects from Tehran. You just have to keep wondering what the Iranian people that are negotiating are thinking, because the president has been so clear that you've got to stop the bombing. You've got to open the straits without fees and without delays. She held out hope that the Qatar talks would have progress, produce progress, but said expectations should remain modest. She said, I hope, but I know everyone's patience is wearing thin. We're all hoping for the best, but not expecting very much. I wonder if the president is happy with that. Not sure. A couple of other stories I want to look at. a news agency in Iran is saying that basically to balance the power, they need to build a nuclear weapon. They have, quote unquote, or end quote, excuse me, no choice. This is from the Fars news agency, and they do have an affiliation with the IRGC, although they're not speaking. They're not speaking for them, but they do work in conjunction with them. There's a couple of things I thought was interesting to say. They said to achieve the peace and calm that Iran needs, it must absolutely reach nuclear deterrence to ensure that the rest of the issues can be resolved through negotiation, according to translation from the New York Post. You know, a lot of these countries have really looked at this for a long time and saw that the nuclear, however small their ability is, that would be a deterrent, and it would level the playing field between superpowers such as China, the United States, Russia, and others. They said America threatened China with nuclear attack twice, similar to President Donald Trump's recent nuclear threats against Iran. But when did Henry Kissinger secretly meet with the Chinese and then negotiate? It was when China built the atomic bomb, the article said. It also goes on to argue that nuclear deterrence means that you can reach a balance of power against America and Israel, who is also thought to be a nuclear power, although they never said that they are, who possess atomic bombs, not so that war does not happen, but so that the scope of conflict remains controllable. They don't even look at it as a war deterrence, just that they can continue doing what they can do and control it. So this is a marked change. And it'll just be something we'll have to play out before us in the days and weeks to come. The IAEA, for its part, their Director General, Rafael Grossi, said Friday that declarations from Tehran alone are insufficient to verify compliance with the agreement. They must be allowed to go in and inspect. And they say at this time they do not have any clear idea of where the material is in the nation. So there are a lot of things still to be settled with this. And yes, Iran, by many, is probably holding out a time and buying time. Remember, midterms are coming, and certainly they would like to hope that there would be some sort of ability by them to see a new Congress, and that would allow them even more time, depending on how the outcome is. It is a razor-thin margin, a majority margin in the Senate and the House. And then just 2 years after, we have another presidential election. We'll see what happens. President Trump has said that Iran requested a meeting in Doha. He said, quote, Iran has requested a meeting. It will take place tomorrow in Doha, Trump wrote on Truth Social. So we will see where that is at. On Tuesday, envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will attend the expected meeting with Iran in Doha on Tuesday. So they're flying there now for high-level meetings this week. So no talks today, cessation of hostilities, hopefully, and talks to continue. So we will see. I have no idea where that's going to go. Speaker Johnson says continue House agenda while pursuing SAVE Act. Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, the House Speaker, urged Republican lawmakers Monday not to block House business as they press the Senate to pass the Save America Act, calling that strategy, quote, self-defeating, end quote. To my colleagues, whomever is thinking that stopping the work of House Republicans to make Americans safer right now and to bring down the cost of living, impeding that progress just because stubborn Senate Democrats won't do the job of the American people is self-defeating, Johnson told reporters. It doesn't make any sense. The news site The Hill reported that Johnson's comments came after House conservatives blocked unrelated legislation last week to pressure the Senate to pass the Save America Act, which would require proof of citizenship for voter registration and voter identification to cast a ballot. The dispute is now threatening House consideration of the annual National Defense Authorization Act. Johnson said he spent several hours at the White House today discussing legislative strategy with the president. Last week, Trump canceled a planned signing ceremony for a bipartisan housing bill over his frustration with the Senate's handling of the Save America Act. After the meeting with Johnson, Trump urged House Republicans on Truth Social to stop, quote, grandstanding, unify, and stop voting against procedural rules that delay House business. Johnson said the House has already approved the Save America Act 3 times and intends to pass it again. He argued the most realistic path to an enactment is through a budget reconciliation bill, which can pass the Senate with a simple majority instead of the 60 votes typically needed to overcome a filibuster. Quote, remember, we passed it 3 times in the House, and we intend to pass it again, Johnson said. But the only way to get that to the president's desk, we've been shown many times, is to put it on a reconciliation bill. So that is in the process. We have a plan to do that, to tie it, to reconcile the budget, which should clearly pass the Byrd rule, the Byrd test over there. The Byrd rule generally limits reconciliation bills to provisions directly affecting federal spending or revenues. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Republican Florida, who has led the effort to withhold support for House procedural votes until the Senate acts on the Save America Act, rejected Johnson's proposal. Quote, this cannot be done. It is impossible. It will not pass the Byrd bath. I have amendments that should be made in order, Luna wrote on X. Caught me off guard there a little bit with that. The Byrd bath. I tell you, it's never boring watching politics. It's never boring, I tell you. Oh, my goodness. In some other news, I thought this was quite interesting. The president signed the right to repair memo for vehicles. On Monday, today, he signed a memorandum supporting Americans' ability to repair their own vehicles. All shade tree mechanics somewhere surely must be clapping. He said, while Americans are generally free to repair their own vehicles, federal law prohibits tampering with emissions control systems, and automakers have long restricted independent mechanics access to diagnostic software, repair information, and specialized tools. Right to repair advocates argue that those restrictions make repairs more expensive, yes, I'll say, and limit consumer choice. While automakers say that they are needed to protect vehicle safety, cybersecurity, and emissions compliance. Trump said the action was a continuation of a similar order he signed earlier this year covering farm equipment and non-road machinery, adding it was prompted by reports that people face legal consequences for repairing their own vehicles. It's really common sense, the president said, adding that many Americans are better at fixing their own cars than mechanics. When I say expensive mechanics, that they know they can do it for cheaper. There's a lot of things we can get brought in that are cheaper parts, and I think there's a part of this where on the, they don't have to buy the main part. That would allow them to buy a part that was manufactured. We'll see where that goes. That's always been they say the more we go, the less you can work on cars without the equipment and everything. And if you're facing some sort of legal challenges, that also would not be good. Let's see. Want to be one more thing. Let's see. I thought I had one more. Defense Secretary of War Pete Hegseth names a new Defense Policy Board. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth on Monday today announced that members of a newly reconstituted Defense Policy Board, naming former U.S. Trade Representative Robert Litzinger, if I can get my mouth to work, Latzither, as chair, and former Senator Norm Coleman, Republican Minnesota, as vice chair of the influential advisory panel. Hegseth's department continues to reshape its advisory bodies under this administration. The Defense Policy Board, established in 1985, provides independent advice to the Secretary of War, Deputy Secretary of War, and the Undersecretary of War for policy on national security, strategy, and regional defense issues, force structure, military modernization, and other matters. Latzither, who served as U.S. Trade Representative through the first Trump administration, will lead the panel. Coleman, who represented Minnesota in the Senate from 2003 to 2009, will serve as vice chair. Among the 15 members announced Monday is venture capitalist Mark Anderson, co-founder and general partner of Anderson Horowitz, whose firm has invested in major defense technology companies, including SpaceX, Skydio, Hadrian, and Anduril, as well as artificial intelligence developer OpenAI. Several of those companies hold War Department contracts as the Pentagon expands investments in autonomous systems, artificial intelligence, and advanced manufacturing. The new board also includes Blake Masters, a former Republican Senate candidate in Arizona, and Michael Anton, who previously served as Director of Policy Planning at the State Department during President Trump's first term. Other members include retired Army General Christopher Cavalli, former national security officials, business leaders, and policy experts selected to advise Pentagon leadership on long-term strategic challenges. The board does not have any decision-making authority, but has historically played a prominent role in providing outside expertise on long-term defense planning and emerging national security challenges. Previous boards have included former senior military officials, diplomats, lawmakers, academics, and business leaders. Hegseth dissolved the previous board in April 25 following an internal review, saying at the time that the panel needed to be realigned with the Department of War's strategic direction and policy priorities under the Trump administration. The Pentagon formally reestablished the board in August through a notice published in the Federal Register. The announcement comes as the department emphasizes military modernization, defense innovation, and strategic competition with China. Although the board has no policy-making authority, its recommendations have historically informed senior Pentagon officials, leaders on issues including military strategy, force posture, regional security, and emerging technologies. I had said some months ago that I felt the United States early in this administration was getting on a war footing and was doing it very quickly. Some challenged that and thought they didn't think so, and I thought that it was directed at China. It doesn't mean we're going to war, but it looks as though we're certainly getting on a war footing. So I thought that was interesting. It was dissolved, it was put back in place, and now members are being added. That's your quick look at news today on PNN News. Stay with us Monday through Friday as we bring you news from across the globe. We appreciate you for your support of the Wolf Nation Network. Big news coming soon. We have meetings scheduled. We're planning things. We're just trying to get in place. We have other announcements about other shows that are coming back, and new shows and new people making shows. We're excited about that. We appreciate you. Pray for us as we move forward. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Patriot Nation News. When the day gets loud, we cut through the crowd. When the fear